Most people think great food comes from fancy restaurants and trained chefs. But did you know the most incredible pasta dishes in American history came from people who had almost nothing? Today, we look at 10 pasta recipes that Italian immigrants made in Little Italy in the 1920s. And the stories behind these recipes will stun you. Baked ziti. Forget the fancy layered lasagnas that northern Italians brag about. Down in Little Italy, they had something better. Introducing baked ziti, or as the natives called it, ziti al forno. You just needed cooked ziti, tomato sauce, ricotta, and mozzarella. You then had to bake it until golden and gloriously bubbling. Sometimes a leftover meatball sneaked in, and that raised its standards to pure luxury. But celebrations don't last forever, and when reality hit, this next recipe saved everything. Pasta and chickpeas. It's 1920. The rent is due, the wallet is empty, and 6 hungry mouths are staring at you. What do? You make pasta and chickpeas. This one-pot wonder took the humblest ingredients imaginable, chickpeas, garlic, tomato paste, and pasta, and turned them into something magical. Every single time, perfecto! The next dish didn't just feed the body, it rescued the soul. Tortellini in broth. Now, as we've already mentioned in our previous videos, New York winters were brutal. Add to that drafty apartments, frozen pipes, and thin walls that did absolutely nothing. But one pot of this on the stove and everything felt survivable. So, how did they make it? Nothing special, just tiny hand-folded pasta rings stuffed with cheese or meat. They were then bobbed gently in broth. Every bowl was essentially a hug with a spoon. Moving on, this next recipe proved that at times, the simplest bowl carries the deepest meaning. Tomato pasta. 4 ingredients: canned tomatoes, garlic, pasta, and a pinch of salt. On lucky days, a single basil leaf would find its way into the pot. And somehow, this dish conquered the entire world. The agenda here was simple and straight. Make something as simple as possible and hope for a better tomorrow. Yet, tomato pasta was more than just dinner. It was dignity and one of the things that brought these immigrants together, despite being thousands of miles away from home. But not every moment called for simplicity. Some moments demanded something spectacular and unforgettable. Oven-baked lasagna. On any given Sunday in 1920s Little Italy, the smell drifting out of restaurant doorways was a full-on ambush. The thing is, back in Italy, every region had its own version and argued passionately that theirs was correct. But in New York, something unexpected happened. Faced with the need to survive, it became everybody's dish. Cooks would mix layers of pasta, rich meat sauce, creamy ricotta, and mozzarella, and cook it till golden brown. After hours of cooking, everyone would be salivating as it finally hit the table. Lasagna fed the crowd, but there's a sneaky little dish that was quietly stealing the whole show. Orecchiette with sausage and broccoli rabe. This recipe traveled straight from the sun-baked fields of Puglia straight to New York, thanks to southern Italian immigrants who refused to leave their food behind. But there was something that made restaurant owners in Little Italy absolutely giddy. Orecchiette looked expensive. Underline looked. We're talking spicy sausage, bitter broccoli rabe, olive oil, and garlic that hit you from across the room. All these would be plated beautifully. Impressed customers could have a taste of Puglia in Little Italy. This was Puglia's greatest export, but don't tell Naples. But beneath all the bold flavors and borrowed recipes, there was a dish that quietly held everyone's heart together. Spaghetti marinara. Spaghetti marinara was just pasta, tomatoes, garlic, and olive oil. And yet it carried an entire generation through the hardest years of their lives. Spaghetti marinara was more than a dinner. It was a quiet reminder that home lives in the smallest things. A simmering pot, a familiar smell, and a table full of people you love. Up next, a dish from Mulberry Street that carried the entire neighborhood on its back. Pasta and beans. This recipe was born from pure necessity in southern Italy. It was peasant food at its finest. Cannellini beans, garlic, crushed tomatoes, and a sneaky little scrap of pork fat the butcher didn't even know was missing. Butter? Cream? Don't even think about it. This was a meal made purely out of the need to be full. Kids renamed it pasta fazool because apparently Neapolitan wasn't American enough. Regardless, the flavor needed absolutely no translation. Peasant food might have said everything, but Sicily walked in with something to prove. Pasta al norma. Only the Sicilians would name a pasta dish after an opera, and honestly, it deserved it. Pasta alla norma arrived in Little Italy carrying the full drama of its homeland. Golden fried eggplant, deep tomato sauce, fresh basil, and ricotta salata crumbled on top like a standing ovation. The ingredients might have been simple, but the result was extraordinary. Now, finding properly aged ricotta salata in 1920s New York was not exactly easy, so the immigrants improvised. Whatever cheese scraps were available went straight on top, but that barely mattered. Little Italy saw this as more than just food. It was a statement. It was a quiet declaration that said, we might have left everything behind, but our flavor came with us. But just when you thought it couldn't get any more Italian, we saved the most sentimental one for last. Linguine with clam sauce. Down by the Hudson docks, there was an unspoken rule. If you knew the right fisherman, seafood was practically free. And here, almost every Italian immigrant knew the right fisherman. That's exactly how linguine with clam sauce found its New York soul. This meal was originally born along the Neapolitan coastline, yet it got the full American makeover using East Coast clams pulled straight from local waters. You just needed garlic, olive oil, white wine, and chopped clams. The aroma? Out of this world. Everyone in the building knew whenever you prepared it. It had the magic to make a tiny Mott Street kitchen feel exactly like the Mediterranean. If you found this video interesting, remember to subscribe to the channel as we have more coming your way.